All right, so tonight we're going to do a video on miniature portraits and what to look for, age, all about them, what kind of pieces you can find on eBay, tag sales, garage sales, uh, you name it, other websites besides eBay, on maybe, perhaps, even thrift shops, which I highly doubt because they've been picked over by the workers. Trust me, I know the secrets. And yeah, so all sorts of things that you can find, and what kind of materials can you find them on? First on the agenda, we're going to check out Lamages. And Lamages is actually a place in France. It's not a brand. And we're going to look at the different types of enamel miniature portraits you can find. And as you can see, these are really gorgeous. It's a metallic type of enamel. And these particular pair that you see here are selling for about $1,196.25. Now, this is known as kiln fired. And as you look close at the enamel, it is kiln fired. And I'll show you an example of a kiln fired piece that I have in my collection. So here are different kinds of kiln fired Lamages type of pieces that you can come across. You'll come across boxes, little portraits and frames. You'll also come across jewelry pieces. These are museum pieces, actually. And you can see the beauty of this kiln fired type of enamel that sort of shimmers in the light, as you can see here. Some of these are very, very, very old, late 1700s, early 1800s to the mid 1800s. Mostly these are 19th century, and these are the backs of the pieces, you can see. And some of them are very, very small. As you can see, these two examples here are only 4 inches by 2 3/4 inches, and they're little plaques. So what could you expect to pay for a teeny tiny pair of these plaques? $1,196.25. Here's another example of this type of kiln-fired Lamages piece. And this is only 2 3/4 inches, and it's a little snuff or little patch box being sold for $746.25. Now you might say to yourself, well, is that the asking price? Or do they actually sell for these prices? Well, I can actually attest to the fact that they do sell for these prices. Here's a box. Boxes are really quite ornate. These little snuff boxes are really, really hard to find, actually. I do have one in my collection. Too bad I couldn't find it to pull out to show you guys. But I'm going to show you my example really fast. So in the group here, let's go through it. Here we go. Here's my version on an ebonized wood frame. And it's quite lovely. I believe it's Marie Antoinette. Let's get in there close. And if you look on the bottom, look at that shimmery enamel type of kiln-fired part to it, like that yellowy color up here, graduating to green. And look at that beautiful shimmery kiln-fired pink enamel. And there we go. And a piece like this, expect to pay between $595 to $800. And it's quite small. Now, miniature portraits have gone back, the history of them have gone back to several hundred years. Now, early, before photography, they had to have portraits painted of themselves in order to memorialize themselves. Now, the higher echelon of society would be able to afford such things, such as kings and queens and noble people, and then the upper middle class. But for the most part, the middle classes and below the middle classes could not afford to get their portraits painted. Now, a lot of them were painted in miniature, such as pieces to go hanging from around the neck, brooches, pins, earrings, even like little bracelets. All sorts of kinds of jewelry would have had somebody's picture painted lovingly on it in miniature. And as you can see, these are very, very tiny and on many different types of mediums. So for example, we have here, this is a late 1700s actual ivory portrait. It's a miniature portrait on ivory. And this one is probably dating from the late or mid 1700s. And so we see this lady here. Don't know who the subject is. We do have a crack. Ivory tends to actually not wear very well over the decades. If you have very, very dry weather followed by very, very wet and damp and cold and hot weather, what will happen is over the years, the little thin, teeny tiny little piece of ivory that it was painted on will contract and will expand, and then you will have this type of damage or issue. Now, it is not quite a problem because this is such a rare piece that this is actually known to happen. Now, if you find one of these and it's in actually mint condition, and there is no cracks or damage on it, it's worth even more. But a piece such as this one, we don't know who the artist is. Now, always look for an artist signature. If you don't see one, the value will be less. But look at this shimmery type of painting. I don't know if you could see that. Look at the pearl. You can actually see the ivory, and it's a bone. And you can see how it shimmers actually in the light. There you go. You can see that shimmery paint over this median. Now, some things were painted on mother of pearl as well. Now, a piece that's unsigned without an identified sitter would probably sell between, and especially with a crack, would sell between about the $200 to $350 range. And on the back, we have this gorgeous fabric, and it's velvet, but it's seen better days, but that's not, a problem. It's to be expected. This would have hung on the wall. And it's quite small, as you can see. It fits into my hand. All right, so next type of portrait you'll find is things on articles of clothing. So for example, we have a late Victorian, early Edwardian portrait belt. And this was a lady's belt. And you see right in the center, we have a faux ivory, which is known as pyrrolin or celluloid, or there was some other names too, Goliath. And this was made to emanate ivory. You see the striations or lines in it, but it is celluloid, and it was made to because the practice of using ivory tusks was going out of fashion since elephants and certain kinds of animals that they use the bone and the ivory for were becoming extinct. So we have here a noble woman. Perhaps it was like a Madame Pompadour style lady, or somebody from the French court or the French royal court. These are quite coveted and sought after. Any kind of portrait on a piece of clothing. And look at the hook for the belt. That's really great. A piece such as this, in good condition, the fabric is not frayed or damaged, would probably sell between the $100 to $200 price range. And especially with a beautiful portrait like this. Now, towards the mid to late Victorian and early 20th century, the miniature hand-painted portraits were starting to go out of style or favor because photography became very affordable, and of course, people can get their photos taken very easily without costing very much. So the miniatures, actually, nobody was really getting their portraits painted anymore. So then started a new type of sort of like how could I put it? A new style came about, and that was to actually for decorative purposes. You would get these French noble ladies of the royal court, or famous people of the day, maybe kings and queens. And my hooker glove is deciding to be a jerk right now. There we go. Painted on little porcelain plaques, ivory plaques. Trying to think, mother of pearl plaques, all sorts of type of materials, and placed on everyday objects, such as these little jewel boxes. So we have these jewel caskets here. These are French with these beautiful noble women. And let's try to get a close-up and get in there. Sorry for the glare. And you see this gorgeous hand-painted lady, along with this one over here who has also another gorgeous French noble lady, perhaps Marie Antoinette with the powdered wig. And these actually are highly sought after by collectors. Now, there were revivals of these starting again, not from just the Victorian era, but they came back in vogue right around the 1920s, 1930s. And you'll find a lot of powder boxes with these French noble ladies on them. Now, to figure out if you have an actual Victorian era one compared to a 1921 or 1930s one is actually easy to figure out if you collect for a long time. You'll know by the way the item was made, the type of material, and you'll realize now these are late Victorian. These are not 1920s. These are French boxes made with gold ormolu, or what we know of like almost like a doré bronze, but it's really like a golden brass. So if you open the boxes up, you will notice the age. A lot of times the silk that's inside of them is actually melting and disintegrating. 9 times out of 10, you won't even find the original interior in them. They just disintegrate and they disappear. That doesn't actually take away from the value. Now, boxes like these, in this good general condition that they're in, would generally sell in the $400 to $700 price range. Next, we have a portrait plaque or plate. And there were a lot of different companies making portrait plaques on porcelain and hand painting, hand painted subjects such as noble people. This is King Louis the 16th, I believe. And Germans did it. So there was a company by the name of KPM. Can't pronounce the whole entire word, but known as KPM, that made really gorgeous portrait plaques on porcelain. Another company, Royal Vienna in Austria, made them. Also, French companies, again, such as Lamages. There was all sorts of companies that were making these type of portrait plates or plaques. So it wouldn't only be a dinner plate, it would be a square plaque. And this particular one is French and was made by a company by the name of, I'm going to get it wrong because it's French. I believe it's pronounced Sèvres, but I call it Sèvres because of the way it's spelled, but it's spelled Sevres. We have King Louis the 16th hand painted, as you can see here, with this gorgeous gilding going around the plate. This plate I can date to about the 1870s, maybe the 1880s, or perhaps a little earlier. There is no marking on the back. Sometimes they are unmarked. What would happen was a company would actually buy the blank from, say, Sèvres and paint them and sell them that way. So there you go. All right, so we got a couple out of the way. Now another neat type of portrait type of piece that you'll actually want to add to your collection are these little pin cushion boxes or, like needlework boxes or cuff boxes. So this is like a cuff box that actually a cufflink box, not a cufflink box, but like they had like detachable cuffs and detachable collars. That's what I'm trying to get at. So this would be like a collar box, and this is made out of celluloid actually. And so you see a print attached on here. This was definitely not hand painted. It's quite a lovely box. It has a latch in the front. And so you see this gorgeous ormolu going around it. And on the back, we have this fancy latches or hinges holding it together. Now, to tell if this is an actual antique, always check the little attachments. So if these little screws are Phillips head, you know you have a reproduction. Flathead screwdriver would have went in here, so you know that this is actually not a reproduction. They did make revivals and they used Phillips head screws. So that's how you can tell that this is an original Victorian one. This is probably from the 1890s to about 1900. We had the original velvet interior in great shape. And so the collars or the detachable cuffs would have went in one of these boxes. Really quite lovely. So let's close that. And next, we have what appears to be a portrait painted of a little girl on a porcelain plaque. So let's go ahead and remove that so I could show this. Now this was probably made in the Art Nouveau era. And so that would probably be the 1890s to the early 1900s. Probably up until about 1905, 1906. So let's get in there close. It looks like a photograph of a little girl that was placed onto a portrait plaque. And we have this porcelain that was painted so lovely. Look at the gold gilding. This was all hand done and quite a piece. This actually would look great in a gold ormolu frame. Now let's flip it over and you see it is a actual thick piece of porcelain. Really quite lovely. There is no signature on it, unfortunately, but it's probably German or Austrian. Probably one of those two countries. Really a lovely piece. Okay, so next we're going to get into what other kind of portrait plaques or portrait pieces you will find in your collection. This particular one happens to be of Lola Her name was actually Lola. Oh my God, I'm having a brain fart. Lola Montez. And she was a famous whore, I believe in the 1800s. And she was like really like a man killer, if you know what I mean. She was a famous like stage actress, and she did something called the spider dance, which was considered really risque. You weren't supposed to show your legs or any part of your skin, your ankles, anything. And she did this spider dance on stages, and thousands of fans from all over the world would go watch Lola Montez on stage dancing. And I believe actually she was probably from the 1850s, 1860s, 1870s, right around there. Now, this is a painting, actually a hand painting. And sorry for the glare because we have a glass panel in front of it. On it's a watercolor, I believe, or gouache. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Or gouache on paper, on like a cardboard backing. And we have this original frame, which is actually gold plated. And unfortunately, I do not see a signature anywhere. A piece like this would sell for the $150 to $300 price range, depending on who is a fan of Lola Montez. All right, so next, let's go ahead. This is going to be a long video. Next, we have our brooches, and I did a couple of videos how I converted these regular brooches into actual necklaces. And these are brooches, and this one actually doubles as a pendant as well. But this one was just a pendant, but I converted it into a necklace. And so here we go. So sometimes, a lot of the times actually, you'll find them done on porcelain. So this one is hand painted. It is of a noble lady by the name of the Duchess of Devonshire, otherwise known as Georgiana or Georgina Cavendish, who is Princess Diana's long lost relative. And here we go again with the same lady done on ivory. And I had tested the gold. I did a gold testing with the acid, and it came out 10 karat. Then I went up a notch to 14K. Found out this is actually 14K. And we have it on ivory. And I don't know, let's get in there closer so you can see this gorgeous, gorgeous hand painting on ivory. And really, that's quite lovely. So basically, these miniature portraits can be found on jewelry pieces, done as paintings, watercolors, gouache, oil paintings. You can find them done on ivory wafers. You can find them placed on celluloid, on porcelain, done in kiln-fired enamel, again on porcelain plates like we see here, on brass, and made into beautiful, beautiful, lovely jewel boxes, and also done again on a celluloid type of material placed onto boxes and actually added on to give it that beautiful, lovely, fancy look. So I hope I taught you something tonight about how you can find all these wonderful, wonderful artifacts. By the way, again, you can find them on clothing, on jewelry, on different kinds of mediums such as ivory, paper, on porcelain, on mother of pearl, on pretty much every single thing that you can look for. It's probably made with these miniature portraits. And what else did you learn? You learned that these miniature portraits are highly coveted, highly collected, highly sought after, and can go for big bucks. Now, I forgot to mention the brooches. Okay, so we got a big brooch here, hand painted. And as you can see here, this is a hand painted brooch, quite large, by the size that it fits in my hand, as you can see here. This one would sell anywhere between $295, even without it being real gold, $295 to $500 at this size and in this condition. This one, being 14 karat gold and done on ivory, would probably sell in the $800 to $2,000 range, depending on the collector and who really wants it bad enough. There you go. So you sat there, you sat through this whole thing. You deserve a medal. Hopefully you'll be kind enough to actually leave me a thumbs up, because I went through a lot of trouble getting these things out. They were all wrapped up and put away, and now I have to wrap every one of these things up in bubble wrap And I don't feel like doing it right now, but I did this just for you guys. So check these out. Look for these in thrift shops. I will guarantee you, you have a better chance of being struck by lightning than finding a piece so exquisite at a thrift shop. So long. See you guys all soon. And I guess I'm on the hunt for more of these.